If I were to show you a picture of students taking a test, you'd recognize it right away, right? Rows of desks separated by a distance large enough that students can't easily communicate with each other. The desk bare except for a piece of paper. The interesting question is this: have you ever encountered in your professional life a situation that is similar to the one in the test? A situation where you're, one, cut off from any information, two, cut off from each other. I think in real life, you have access to any information you want. In real life, you can work with other people. Not only you can work, you probably have to work with other people. So why is it that we're assessing students and students trying to predict students' future success in the workplace by putting them in an environment, in a situation that they will never, ever face in their future careers? Unfortunately, I think assessment has evolved into this kind of hurdle that students need to pass in order to obtain a grade.
Just the other day I had a student say, I need to come in and get some help on this, but I don't want to do it until we're close to the test because I want to make sure it's fresh on my brain for when I take the test. And I'm thinking, how problematic is that's what the goal is the goal is really to pass the test.
One of the things we know from cognitive science research is that if you just kind of memorize something, never use it, spit it back on a test, the odds are that about 90% of that will be forgotten. One does not transfer to the other. And the real world learning, which has to use flexible thinking and you have to know what kind of ideas you need to apply, that's what counts. And we're not teaching for that when we teach to the tests that we have.
What I find myself having to do on a regular basis is talk students out of thinking outside the box, of trying to be elastic in the way that they approach things. Because the way that you succeed on this test is knowing the ways in which they've standardized it, they've made it predictable, and you have to then behave in a predictable manner.
So right now, the way I'm testing my students is very different. It's inspired from an approach to teaching called team-based learning. They sit in groups of 5 at tables, but for this first half hour, they each answer the questions individually. Half their grade will be determined by their individual performance. Then after half an hour, they have to now do the test again as a team, deciding which is the correct answer. So by the time the total period is over, which is typically about an hour and a half, the students walk out of the room. They've learned, they've had aha moments in class, they've worked together. There's both an individual and a team responsibility. They're not cut off from information because they're doing it on their computer, so they can look up anything they want. And you may think, well, doesn't this lower the standard? No, I think it has significantly raised the standard. I think we should start asking ourselves, what are the skills that we want our students to learn? And then we should arrange our assessment and our instructional practices around those goals. I have a list of outcomes, which are skills rather than factual knowledge, that I want my students to learn. Be able to work in teams, be able to communicate, be able to engage in self-directed learning. And my assessments are aimed at trying to measure whether or not we've successfully accomplished that. I think there's all indication that we're doing significantly better in terms of meeting the needs of the students and the needs of their careers, which might be in jobs that we can't even imagine right now.